positive। कैसे हो भाई बहनों, आज हम लोग कुछ बैठे हुए हैं, ladies and gentlemen, woo! You know, there's something about negativity on the internet that just sells, okay? You know, if I titled this video, Cyberpunk killed my whole family, all right? Cyberpunk killed my whole family and got away with it, then maybe people would be like, oh, I'll click on that video. But if I titled this, Cyberpunk saved a bunch of kitties from a tree and brought world peace, you might be like, whoa, positivity? Not on my watch. Now, to understand, I'm a little positive about this because Cyberpunk 2077 has got a bit of a second chance, all right? There's a lot of people playing it. I was recently on Steam loading the game up, and I saw that 84,700 nerds were joined onto the adventure of driving around Night City with me. Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 is kind of breaking its own records again. It's a little bit insane. You know, when it comes to single-player games, and, you know, after a week after its release, people are like, the game's dead, bro! It's already done! Yeah, it's a single-player game. People usually no-life it. And then a week down the road, it's not as played as a multiplayer game, you know, something with regular engagement, if you will, okay? Basic logic applies. But obviously Cyberpunk slumped, you know, it came back, all right, a little pulse has been retrieved into it. But recently it's got 176% player gain, and that's just on Steam. And as you all know, a lot of gamers play on PlayStations and Xboxes, so I can imagine the number there is pretty high. Now, obviously, the game is on sale right now, but a lot of its popularity comes from a TV show known as Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Now, if you don't know Cyberpunk Edgerunners, apparently the critics have been loving it and the viewers have been loving it, which usually isn't common, okay? Usually when it comes to TV shows, critics either love the product and the fucking community hates it, or it's vice versa, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I love a movie known as Junior, okay? You know, it's AI prompted. You know, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito giving birth to a beautiful baby boy. But, of course, or baby girl, actually. I remember the end of the movie. But, you know, a lot of people would hate that movie. I tend to like the movie. You understand, like, when it comes to movies, critics love it. You know, viewers hate it. But this is one where, like, everyone loves it and everyone just likes it. Now, when it comes to Netflix shows and TV, all right, and video games, it's oftentimes a bad combination, okay? It can be a bad day. You know, I remember Resident Evil as a TV show. Whew, that was a pile of stinking asshole. Now, this is the second show I watched on Netflix, so set aside some time for it. I haven't finished the show at all, but I've watched a few episodes, and generally, I like what I sees, okay? Now, if you're a fan of cyberpunk stuff, like, I'm not a big anime person, so when I watch shit like Akira and like Ghost in the Shell, I like them because of their cyberpunk background. I'm not really a big anime person, but watching Edgerunners was enough to show me that, okay, all right, they know their audience. I mean, just showing you one still of standing over Corpo Plaza, you can see Militech over there. They're literally calling back to Ghost in the Shell. It's absolutely made by people who love cyberpunk. It's made by absolutely talented individuals. And if I had to give a recommendation on a TV show, give it a watch. Look, I told you to watch Resident Evil, okay? And that was a pile of shit. I'm actually telling you to watch something good. Now, that's enough positivity, okay? Let's put on our negative hats on. Obviously, lying is bad, okay? Don't you agree? You know, lying is a bad thing to do. You shouldn't lie in general. Just like you shouldn't cheat on your significant other. You shouldn't lie about things. You shouldn't do anything bad, okay? There's a moral problem with that shit. Now, when it comes to video game companies and lying, it goes hand in hand, like beer and wings, okay? When it comes to AAA gaming companies telling us about their video games and feeding us bullshit, it comes hand in hand. Look, we've been through it, okay? I remember Watch Dogs 1. There is nothing about the actual final release product that matches that E3 footage, okay? Never happened. Never even close. When it came to No Man's Sky, and I know you're gonna be like, but Nuna, No Man's Sky was an indie game. Yeah, it was an indie game, but the lies were AAA, bro. Because let me tell you something. When it came to like old Hello Games and No Man's Sky, I would wager to remind you, the game that you're playing currently, No Man's Sky, right now, take like 80% of its content out, and that's what you get with No Man's Sky 1.0. Hell, I recently loaded up No Man's Sky 1.0 on the PlayStation 4, and I swear to God, even the goddamn base building blocks, the periodic table for fuck's sake, is entirely rearranged from what it is now. Now, does that make No Man's Sky a bad game? Absolutely not. It's one of my most played space games. I like it, dude. I love space games. I like No Man's Sky. But a lie is a lie. And No Man's Sky took like 2 years before it actually got good. It was absolutely billed with features that were never in the game. Still, some of those features aren't even in the game. And, it's one of those things that rubs you the wrong way. Now, Cyberpunk 2077 was a game that I waited for a long time. Look, the moment I started doing, hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, today's Haunted Gaming, that era, that's when I was waiting for Cyberpunk 2070. I saw the teaser trailer. I was excited. Hey, my favorite environment, open world. All right, given with the care and love that CD Projekt Red has, I was full dicked ready. Until the game obviously launched like 2.5 years ago, and it was a pile of putrid ass feces. Okay, let's not forget, Cyberpunk 2077 day one was dog shit. Okay, there were a lot of features that were never inputted into the game. Okay, still aren't even close into the game. You can't even go and buy a car in the game from a goddamn dealership, okay? That's how far beyond it is. Now, when it comes to a good game, one that you can remember, I always bring GTA 5 as an example. I know that a lot of us will probably look at GTA 5, and its, I guess you could say, reputation has been sullied by the constant monetization of GTA Online, but one thing to understand is GTA 5 as a core single-player title is a very good game. For being a PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 game at the very late end of that generation, and rendering the open world in the way that it did, and providing a front-to-end storyline that was as good as it was, is something that oftentimes isn't really replicated in today's day and age. Throughout Cyberpunk 2077's advertising, obviously there have been a lot of lies that have been told, and of course the game is nowhere near the best open world recreation at all, okay? Obviously Cyberpunk 2077 and CD Projekt Red gave some massive lies. It was absolutely taken off digital storefronts because of its poor performance, and at the time, obviously them issuing a refund policy that I'm pretty sure Sony and Microsoft were not too keen on just randomly being thrown about. But of course, to move on with that whole situation, Cyberpunk 2077 has been given like 2 years worth of updates. And we looked at it, version 1.6, which is the Edge Runner update, last I checked, was actually pretty decent. This is my 5th time playing through the entire game start to finish. So obviously there is something good when it comes to the storyline. Clearly the game is missing out on its RPG elements. I think no matter what, the first act of this game will always be the strongest representation for what could have been. If you're somebody that has played Fallout New Vegas, or really anything that claims to be a open world RPG game, a role-playing game, you'll probably realize that you're spoiled for choice, okay? You can play games like Deus Ex Human Revolution and absolutely be spoiled in how many different ways you can tackle situations. Cyberpunk is not like that at all. Cyberpunk is very much a Cyberpunk-style Far Cry game, if you will. A very good Far Cry-style game, but ultimately it's a game where you drive around in a city, you do a bunch of gigs, some storyline missions, right off the bat, and there's not a whole lot of interconnectedness in how you can tackle a story differently or how much the city responds to you as an actual player, okay? Obviously, it's very much just a standard AAA open world game. Nothing too terribly special, but now it's completely functional as far as a lot of those features that should have been in the game from the start. Clearly, there are things that are missing, like for instance, a police system, which currently is aimed to be rehauled by CD Projekt Red themselves. Like, literally right here, they've said, the game's director, the cop system as well as vehicle-to-vehicle combat, shooting at other cars while you're driving, is getting a complete overhaul. It's insane how, like, even when you look at the promotional material, V is clearly shooting out of the vehicle. You can't really do that while you're driving a car in the game, okay? Unless you fucking mod it, I guess. Now, I do have to do some corrections. Last time we talked about it, I talked about multiple DLCs, when it took like 4 minutes of research to realize the actual DLC that's coming out, Phantom Liberty, is the only DLC. Now, again, Phantom Liberty is the one and only expansion, and apparently we're expected not to get anything in the future. Now, that said, though, given the recent rise in popularity of Cyberpunk, maybe that could change. Who knows? Maybe they got a bunch of new ideas for the sequel, Cyberpunk 2078, or Cyberpunk 2077 #2, or some fucking subtitle underneath it. Look, I don't know how to name names. Obviously, I don't work in a marketing department. If Xbox can get away with how they name their titles, I think Cyberpunk 2077 is golden. Clearly, this game's gonna get a sequel. Let's not joke about it, okay? It's sold enough. It's definitely one strong IP for, CD Projekt Red, and it's one they want to go with in the future. Clearly, it's gonna get a sequel, but the only expansion that we have better be a banger, okay? Given how this Netflix TV show has reinvigorated life into it, they have gotten one thing that's rare in the video game industry: a second goddamn chance. Very few times can you ever rub off a bad impression, okay? And a first bad impression is terrible. It's a death knell half of the time. Most of the time. There are still people to this day, if I make this video in the comment section, they'll be, "But Muna, Cyberpunk is bad. It's completely terrible, unplayable." And you know what? In a lot of ways, that's the impression that people have gotten, and it's no fault of their own. CD Projekt Red failed to release a good game 2.5 years ago. And had they had delayed this title, which was really impossible because they were answering and catering to investors at the time, and of course fan pressure, they had to release a game early, and this is what we got: a bad title. And of course, they got the chance to patch the game up, bring it up to a new standard, and at some point we have to sit down and wonder, maybe it was too late. Maybe it really is. Now, a lot of people are playing the game again, so hopefully it's a chance to get a brand new impression and finally make up for a lot of lost time. Now, of course, playing through Cyberpunk 2077, I finished it recently again, which is why I'm making this video on this newest patch, and I can say for sure that while the bugs have been completely diminished, the game is still what it was when it launched. There's a few new features, but ultimately it's still Cyberpunk as always. I think the real strength of this game comes out in its side content. Towards the second act of the game, you'll be constantly given these branching subquests that are far better than the actual main storyline and the main quest line, and it's great if you're playing it in that respect. As far as the main storyline, it'll always be a reminder of what could have been, these branching storylines that never came into fruition. But ultimately now, I think Cyberpunk is about as complete as you're ever going to expect it, right? It's the game that should have been there at launch, okay? Which, again, is 2 years, maybe too late. But honestly, there's a few mods that fix things up. So if you're in the PC side, for one, they actually got flying cars, which I don't know why we don't have them in the base. I don't even know why we have no helicopters in the base game. But thanks to the modding community and the modding tools that have been provided, people are getting into some goddamn working around. Again, be careful at Nexus mods. Like 50% of these are like sex mods. So again, what NSFW warning. Of course, they've also got a Ghost in the Shell, a visual overhaul. So if you're somebody that plays around with the ENB series, you might want to actually put this personally because it gets rid of a lot of that sunny Californian color, which, given current climate change trends, probably wouldn't be realistic. Of course, you've also got luxury apartments as well, too. People have been modding in, like, new places to live, which for an RPG game are always accepted. Hey, they've even got a whole metro system. Remember that commercial? Remember the trailer where, like, V's in an actual subway? Yeah, I guess you kind of get to relive that experience. How is it that we couldn't actually have a fucking working metro system in Night Goddamn City? Okay, come on now. The modders are here to fix up whatever's left out of this game, too, which is always healthy and accepted. You've also got a virtual car dealer, which, again, CD Projekt Red, how hard was it to just buy a vehicle from the goddamn game's web browser? You have a goddamn web browser for a reason. How is it impossible for me to buy a Rayfield supercar right from the dealer? I'll pay the eddies. I want to do that. Of course, they've also got enhanced police mods, which if you can't wait for them to overhaul it yourself, this one is a pretty good stopgap right now. Have you ever wanted to get chased in Night City? I know that I did. That's why I bought all the goddamn supercars in the game. Clearly, this mod helps you at least live some of those fantasies out. But of course, I really wanted to top it off because talking about Cyberpunk in a positive way is something that I quite enjoy. Look, we're getting like 3 Yakuza games in the next 2 years, okay? So I'm already a happy gamer. But to see one game that I've been waiting for a long time finally get some love and praise is something that I can actually appreciate and accept to see. And look, even beyond that, NVIDIA's going out to make the game look even better. So like if you actually look at it, the reflections have gotten smoother. This shot right here is enough to show you the power of the ray tracing in the game. So you can see how like they've got actual shadows, like it's calculating the light coming in, bouncing all across the walls, and it's diffusing, and you can see proper shadowing and ambient occlusion in this area. Even the reflection from above is absolutely captured perfectly down here in this like puddle. And of course, if you turn it all off, it goes back to a cube map and everything is just very, very poorly lit. I mean, it's lit to the best of its ability, but ray tracing really does change it. And of course, the more you go into it, they show DLSS 3, which is a great comparison when you turn on all the graphic consuming features and no AI assist, and then you just slap it onto 2 to show us like the actual change in performance. And then of course, they show the new third, and it's like they get like 20 to 25 extra frames. Look, when your graphic card costs over $1,000, NVIDIA, I better see those performance changes. Just saying, okay? I mean, shit, NVIDIA's in kind of a crappy camp right now, but that's a whole different story. I mean, talking about the EVGA situation is totally just off the mark. But you know what? I want to tie off this video right here. Good news all around for Cyberpunk. Honestly, I wanted to really end this on a good note. I've made plenty of videos shitting on Cyberpunk, rightfully so, and I just wanted to make one video to really just showcase my thoughts on the anime, and to also showcase my thoughts on the game as a whole to this day. I know that I made a video like a couple weeks ago telling you that it's getting better, but after playing through the game again, I can tell you that it is in the state that it should have launched in to begin with. Obviously, there's still going to be features missing, like the massive crowds that you would have seen in the E3 builds. The branching storylines aren't there. The goddamn police system isn't there yet. But of course, I think the next time I make a Cyberpunk video, it's going to be when the expansion packs drop, okay? So that being said, though, if you enjoyed what you saw, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.